So thank you, Tosin, for receiving us here today in Sharjah for the Architecture Triennale. And we wanted to start this conversation by asking you about how did you came up with this theme and what do you hope to achieve through it?
So this theme really is, I think it's a body of all my experiences growing up in Lagos. So much of who I am is based on the experiences um, living in a city with many constraints. But apart from living in a city of many constraints, also the hybridity of growing up somewhere and going to school somewhere else. And so having a very strong consciousness of a global south, but also a global north, and understanding the polarities between the two. Um, Sometimes you almost have to be taken out of your context to understand and appreciate the value of what you have, and vice versa. And the theme, the beauty of impermanence, really is about the celebration of everything that exists, particularly in the global south, when it comes to places that still thrive under conditions of scarcity. I know several situations of, in Nigeria, we don't have 24-hour power. Water can be a challenge to get, and we have a lot of challenges with transportation as well. But if you look at Lagos as a city, it still functions. And when you look at cities like Lagos, that irrespective of orthodox suggestions about urbanism and planning, and they still thrive, it does make you question, under what model are they existing, and what lessons can we learn from that? And I really wanted to make a point that even though a lot of these locations have a level of disparity, but there is an optimism that comes from that. And there's a celebration from that optimism that can be achieved. And what lessons can we learn from global south to north from these conditions that exist?
Perfect. And these are things that we want to pick in.
Yes.
But to start zooming in, I want to also ask you, because as you say, this is a personal experience moving between North and South, but also what helped you have this very wide view because the global South is far reaching across the globe.
I think what I've picked on isn't something that a lot of people are not aware of, but maybe not acknowledged and crystallized in this form. I think generally being an architect and having an overview of urbanism does help you to almost have a top down, but also a bottom up perspective. And so all I've done here is highlight some of these existing conditions and celebrate possibly the sophistications that exist within them. That doesn't tend to be acknowledged by what we consider as progress. And I think this is the important point. Platforms like the Sharjah Architecture Triennial, they give a voice and an accessibility and an enabling environment to ensure that we have these discussions. We have these discussions around areas that don't normally get this audience. There is no center. There is diversity and there is strength in all sectors, of the world. And ensuring that we fully understand the values that are here, we're able to celebrate them, we're able to learn from them, I think is quite important.
So there is in a way, an added responsibility.
There is a responsibility. There's a responsibility for us to ensure the global south understand the value that we have, but also a responsibility to let the global north know that there is an alternative and that they can also learn something from us.
And how did you translate this approach into the physical installations across the Triennale?
Um, this was a really beautiful journey, coming up with the theme and then finding practitioners whose practice resonates with the theme. And I think, to be honest, there was a very clear trajectory at the start. The idea of being able to highlight these practices who are working with within this idea of context and tradition, but also very much aware of the reality of modernity and creating some hybridity. But I think when we started to get responses back from participants, that also reinformed the curatorial statement and refined it. And we started to see the three strands emerge. The exhibition really started from this idea of renewed contextual. But in getting responses back, we started to see the value of the intangible bodies and the extraction politics aspects of the exhibition. And so there's been a tightening that's happened, which I think has ensured that this will have a much longer longevity than just the reality of this exhibition. This process has been a learning process for everyone. There has been my giving knowledge, but also the participants giving knowledge back. And I feel that it will be very clear from the exhibits that there is a very tight evolution, and a value and appreciation of everyone who's been involved in this.
But there is a desire from the foundation behind the triennial that this knowledge stays here. It's not just something temporary.
Yes, there is an acknowledgement. It's very important for the foundation that we immerse our interventions in this locality. And I think ultimately, as I've stated I've stated through the theme and through the statement, contextuality of place is important. So much of our world today is about globalization, the fact we can move materials from halfway across the world to another location without any acknowledgement for the place and the identity of place. And these kind of exhibitions force us to turn that on its head and really think about, what does it mean to be local? You know, being local is about so many aspects: socioeconomic, political, material. You can still get people from another region come and localize an intervention. An understanding of the social structures that exist there, the cultures of the people, the materials available, the climate in that location. And I think that's where we should be pushing this profession. It's not enough to have a global mono approach to our urbanism and our architecture. We must place it in its context. So we have three strands, and they are intertwined, and most participants' work actually goes across, you know, two at the very least, but everyone kind of sits kind of amplified in one. We have renewed contextual, which is about participants and practitioners who are working in context, working with materiality, working with the climate, contextually placing their projects, and hopefully proposing softer versions of modernity. We have extraction politics, which sits at the realm of the tension that exists between our urbanism, our economics, and our balance with ecology. And these practitioners are highlighting the tensions that exist. The third strand we have is intangible bodies. And intangible bodies is really looking at the ephemeral, you know, our emotions, our empathy with our environment, our spirituality, the more intangible aspects of our existence and our urbanism.
How were you first involved and brought into this exhibition, and why was it important for you to take on this specific challenge?
So I got contacted by the Triennial to submit a proposal for a closed call. And the prompt that I had to address was, how will the global south deal with the challenges of climate change? Um, and what's really great about the foundation is it is carrying on from the first triennial, which was done by Adrian Lahore, which is the rights of future generations. So this idea of thinking about the future, thinking about the climate and what we leave behind was the starting point for my triennial. And why not take on the challenge? I mean, it was a huge challenge, and I'm happy that I have taken it on, because I've also evolved as a practitioner, I've evolved as a designer, I've evolved as a curator, and a lot of the lessons learned from this will continue to influence my practice moving forward. I think quite important to note here is that I am a practicing professional. You will get, in many situations, architects who are curators, either working in academia or working in practice. You hardly find curators within the architectural space who purely curate as a profession. And I was very aware that I had picked a big subject matter and that it would have to be across the region. And I didn't have access to some of the potential participants or the participants who are in the exhibition now, because there would have been challenge of geography or challenge of language. And I had an advisory board incorporated, and they were instrumental in ensuring I was able to reach the practitioners who really are pushing the boundaries within their geographies around the subject matter. And in meeting people and conversing, and, you know, that back and forth exchange of knowledge really enriched this whole process. First of all, I'm very proud about the diversity of work that we have from the different participants. We have people who come from practice. We have people who come from academia. We have people who come from disciplines that are not necessarily architecture. This exhibition is also quite multidisciplinary. We have fiber artists, we have fashion designers, we have product designers. You know, all aspects that actually affect life within our city have been considered and have contributed towards, you know, the work that you will see on display. Um, to name a few projects that I'm terribly excited about, we have Sumaya Dagba from Dagba Architects, who has very beautifully shown us the possibilities of working with materials that are local, from bricks that are made of earth that are not fired, these would have been used in a more traditional setting. And because her work involves working particularly in conservation, she has good relationships with the contractors, with the developers within the sector, and was able to produce a really beautiful, pavilion that showcases the possibilities of this technology. We have Bugazaville, which is Bobby Colade from Kampala, who is a fashion designer who works with secondhand clothing, which really brings to the foreground the challenges we have with consumerism and how much waste we have from fast fashion, and what the possibilities are when we start to think about our consumption as individuals and what it has on the bigger, the global network in terms of waste. We have Natural Frontiera, who did a really beautiful project in Ecuador, where they took their project, the exhibition funds, and actually created an intervention project, which politically was quite sensitive, because they were showing the local government that you could build better, you could retain social networks and ensure socioeconomic structures remain retained, and ultimately putting people first. When architects design buildings and create architecture for people irrespective of their socioeconomic group, this really shows the possibilities of how powerful our profession is and the intervention that we can have, not just for ourselves, but for a much wider community and the ripple effect from that.
Why the Global South, and what can the world learn from the Global South?
Why not the Global South? I think it's important to note that as we move forward, and I think post-COVID, there's been such an emphasis on a celebration of diversity. There is no center. There is so much that can be learned from us, as we can learn from the Global North. Being able to highlight what is special and sophisticated about our existence, and the fact that we contribute so little to the massive challenges we have of climate change, says something. I think they need to pay attention. And we need to pay attention to ourselves.
And what do you hope to achieve with this exhibition? What do you want the audience to take from this?
I think I would like to add that it was very important to us to put on an exhibition that is about ensuring we have a much wider interface than your traditional architecture exhibition. There's something for everyone here. It's very important that we create an exhibition about experiences, irrespective of your technical knowledge. There is something of experience you can take from here. But ultimately, I think what I would love for us to learn is that in the process of understanding an alternative way of doing things and understanding the challenges that our current trajectory of modernity has created in terms of our climate crisis, if we all think differently and systemically change our approach to our consumption, to the way we build, and also to the way we design, we could leave this as a better planet than we have it now.
And finally, amidst challenges of the world, how relevant are biennales, triennales, and exhibitions nowadays?
We cannot underestimate the importance of critical discourse. The opportunity to explore the possibilities of materials, the possibility of principles, the possibility of systems being an alternative is immensely profound. We have a participant here, Hive Earth, who have worked extensively with rammed earth in West Africa. They've come into the UAE and produced a pavilion in collaboration with the foundation itself, designing while they constructed. But what's really been great is that we've had 3 different contractors from the region interested in technology that they have developed. And there was quite a lot of challenges in ensuring that rammed earth worked in this environment, because the soil condition is different. And here they realized they had to work with more of an aggregate than a soil. But all of a sudden now, people are seeing the possibilities of an alternative way of development. And when we take principles that we develop in one region and we can then apply in another, it just shows you how interconnected and how much we can push this forward. And so these kind of exhibitions, not just in the theoretical sense, are important, but also the material development that can happen. And I'm just really excited and happy to show that we have many examples of these principles across the exhibits that we have today.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.